Okay, so let's take a look at the EduFlow program. I'm going to share my screen, and what I'm sharing is the student view. I've created a couple fictitious students. This is Charlie Darwin, and this is what the student will see when they open the course. And here I've got my experimental design lesson that I typically do at the beginning of the year for freshman biology. And I've broken it into, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sections. Now this typically, first time through, I'll be honest, takes about 5 to 7 days. There's a lot of process teaching going on. I do this about 3 times each semester, 6 times for the year. By the time we get to the 3rd, 4th lab, we're doing this instead of 5 to 7 days, we're doing this in 4 to 5 days. And by the time we get to 2nd semester, we're doing this in 3 to 4 days. So the students do ultimately get more efficient. And most importantly, their science practice skills improve a great deal. So this is what the student's going to see. On the left side is the workflow. This is the sequence in which I want the student to complete the lessons. You'll see there are circles to the right of each task. Empty circle means it's not been done yet. This gray circle with the padlock in it means that is locked. There is a prerequisite. They must complete prior assignments before going into that. And this sort of helps track the student's work all the way down. So if I start with the baseline lab, which is the common lab that all students will do to become familiar with the basic concept, in this case, enzyme catalysis, which I think is the 2nd lab I do with my freshmen. And it also, most importantly, introduces them to a protocol that they're going to modify and use for later in the process. So there's a Google Doc or a PDF, same document. They'll go through, they'll read through the lab protocols, and they'll mark it complete when done. Yes, there's an honor system here. Of course, if the student doesn't do all this work, it's going to catch up to them. Following that, I have them take a look at a video. So I can share any type of video from my computer, from YouTube, and they'll watch that video. And once they've watched that video, they'll mark that as complete. And notice the 2 padlocks below just disappeared. Now in the beginning, I will give a little bit more support. So I'm going to provide them with a document of all the possible variables and what the constant level of those variables will be for their lab design. They'll look those over. And then a relatively new feature just came on yesterday is I can schedule a Zoom meeting with them. In this case, I might use that Zoom meeting to have a conversation about what the different variables in the experiment are, which variables could we alter or manipulate, and then students could volunteer or we could assign which students are going to test which variables. And we would mark that as complete, and notice the lock comes off of the pre-lab assignment. So once they know what variable they're going to change, so let's say they're going to change temperature. They're going to go into this pre-lab assignment. They're going to open up the Google Doc or the PDF. And all these documents I will put in a folder in the MABT share folder that you can have access to. This is just a 2-page document identifying all the things I want to know before they go into the lab and actually run the experiment. They can make a copy of this and directly type into it, or they can type into a separate document. Either way, they're going to come back and they're going to use one of these tools to submit. I'm going to submit from my hard drive. So I'm going to upload documents. Here's my pre-lab. And that's going to upload my pre-lab into the the EduFlow program. I'm going to hit submit. And when I hit submit, that unlocks the peer review feedback. I'm now going to get 3 different other students' pre-labs to give feedback on. So let's take a look at that. So in this case, I have 1 review open because I only have 2 students in this class at this point. I won't know whose I'm reviewing. This is done anonymously, but I set up a 2nd student called Rosie Franklin. And so I would hit this blue button to review this first student's work. And it's going to pop up. Here's Rosie's work right here, and right along next to it is the rubric. All right, so if I look at question 2, is the research question actually a question? And is their question testable? Explain. I'm going to type some type of response into that box, and I can keep going down. And in this case, I have 15 questions that go right along with this. and the student is going to complete that feedback. I'm just going to randomly type a couple just odd things in. And notice it said, please complete the question, because you can set a word limit. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. But anyway, very easy, very simple program like PeerGrade to be able to give the feedback to the student. Once the 3 reviews have been submitted, you will have a chance, that will open up the feedback reflection tab. Students will open that up. I can't show that part to you because I don't have enough students in the mock classroom. But basically, there's 3 questions. And you can alter the questions, but the questions are, what did you learn from the review about your prelab? How are you going to use that information to improve your prelab? And then they make a rating of how they felt the quality of the feedback was. And then they would move on. In face-to-face class, we would actually conduct the experiment over a couple days. They would collect their own data. My alternative in this case was to provide data from previous years so they could still go through data analysis, graphing, and those types of things. That would allow them to create their post-lab. Again, they would open up the post-lab. They would access the documents they need. They would submit it. It would go through a very similar process to peer review. And after that, they would revise their final post-lab, submit the revised copy. That would go to me as the instructor, and we would give the final feedback. And that would complete the process. Let me quickly show it to you from a teacher standpoint. So I'm going to log out and log in as the teacher. As I open up the course, it's going to look very similar. Same workflow, everything's laid out. The only difference is now you have 3 dots, and these 3 dots allow you to name the activity, edit the activity, duplicate the activity, or delete the activity. Every one of these tasks has multiple parameters you can edit and set in the program. From a feedback standpoint, you can hit this summary button, and the summary button will show you where they are. Here's Charlie and Rosie. I can see they've completed up to submit your work, but they have not completed the feedback and the peer review yet for the pre-lab. So it gives me a nice picture of what's going on. I can also go to, I can also go to the submit your pre-lab, and it will tell me how many I have. And as an instructor, if I want to, I can go ahead and take a look at those pre-labs that have been submitted. And so I can look at Charlie's pre-lab, I can click on it and look at Rosin's pre-lab, and that gives me a nice overview. So I think EduFlow has a lot of potential. The workflows that you can create are almost unlimited. It's stringing together a series of tasks that make sense for students to be able to work together, collaborate, and create products that demonstrate their learning. So I encourage you to take a look at EduFlow. It's going to continue to add things and improve as it's a new product, and it's something I look forward to using in the fall. So let me go back.